Imagine an army winning a battle using nothing but fake tanks and inflatable soldiers. Military history is full of surprising and ingenious strategies that defy conventional warfare. Today, we're diving into the craziest war tactics that actually worked. Welcome to History Lab Archives. In this video, we'll explore some of the most unbelievable military tactics that achieved success against all odds. From ancient ambushes to modern psychological warfare, these strategies showcase the creativity and cunning of military minds throughout history. We'll uncover lesser-known but fascinating tactics like Hannibal's daring Alpine crossing, the Russians' scorched earth strategy, and the ingenious ploys of the Ghost Army during World War II. You'll be amazed by how these unconventional methods changed the course of battles and shaped history. Hannibal's Alpine crossing, defying the odds. Hannibal Barca, one of history's greatest military commanders, is renowned for his audacious march over the Alps to invade Rome. In 218 BC, during the Second Punic War, Hannibal led his Carthaginian army, including war elephants, over the treacherous Alps. This bold move caught the Romans off guard, as they did not anticipate an attack from such an inhospitable direction. Despite losing many men and animals to the harsh conditions, Hannibal's surprise entry into Italy allowed him to win several significant battles on Roman soil. Hannibal's journey was perilous, with steep mountain paths, freezing temperatures, and hostile tribes. The logistical challenges were immense, yet Hannibal's leadership and strategic foresight enabled his army to navigate the terrain. The psychological impact on the Romans was profound. They were unprepared for an invasion from the north and struggled to counter Hannibal's advances. The sight of elephants, animals unfamiliar to the Roman army, added to the shock and awe, amplifying the psychological warfare. Imagine the Romans' reaction when they saw elephants emerging from the snowy Alps. Who knew that crossing the Alps could be such an elephantastic idea? Guess Hannibal really knew how to take the high road literally. Hannibal's strategy was not just military genius, but also a masterstroke in psychological warfare. Historian Livy provides a detailed account of Hannibal's campaign in his work History of Rome, highlighting the incredible challenges and triumphs of this daring maneuver. From Hannibal's daring Alpine crossing, we now move to a more destructive strategy used during Napoleon's invasion of Russia. The Russian scorched earth strategy, defeating Napoleon. During Napoleon's invasion of Russia in 1812, the Russians employed a brutal yet effective scorched earth strategy. As Napoleon's Grande Armée advanced into Russia, the Russian forces, led by General Mikhail Kutuzov, retreated deeper into the country. They adopted a scorched earth policy, burning villages, destroying crops, and poisoning wells to deny the French army food and shelter. This tactic aimed to stretch Napoleon's supply lines and weaken his army without engaging in direct combat. The harsh Russian winter further compounded the French army's struggles. Starving, freezing, and harassed by Russian guerrilla attacks, the Grande Armée suffered massive losses. By the time Napoleon's forces reached Moscow, they found the city abandoned and set ablaze by the retreating Russians. The lack of supplies and shelter forced Napoleon to retreat, during which his army faced relentless attacks and severe weather conditions. Of the 600,000 soldiers who began the invasion, only about 100,000 made it back to France. Imagine the French soldiers' despair as they found nothing but ashes and ruined supplies. Napoleon thought he could conquer Russia, but instead he got a masterclass in extreme winter sports and advanced starvation techniques. Have you ever had to resort to drastic measures to outwit an opponent or solve a problem? Share your experiences in the comments. Historians like Dominic Lieven in Russia Against Napoleon and Adam Zamoyski in 1812, Napoleon's fatal march on Moscow, provide detailed accounts of the scorched earth tactics and their devastating effectiveness. While the Russian strategy relied on destruction and attrition, our next segment explores a more subtle and psychological approach. The Ghost Army, Masters of Deception. In World War II, the Allies employed a unique unit known as the Ghost Army to deceive and mislead German forces. The Ghost Army, officially the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, was a tactical deception unit composed of artists, actors, and engineers. They used inflatable tanks, sound effects, and fake radio transmissions to create the illusion of large troop movements and military installations. This deception played a crucial role in misleading the Germans about the Allies' true plans, particularly during the Normandy invasion and subsequent campaigns. The unit's operations involved elaborate ruses, including creating fake airfields, dummy landing craft, and even phony headquarters. They would use speakers to broadcast the sounds of troops and machinery, while inflatable tanks and vehicles were positioned to mimic real forces. The Ghost Army's success relied on its ability to create convincing illusions that fooled enemy reconnaissance and disrupted German strategic planning. Imagine being a German soldier and seeing an entire army appear overnight, only to realize later that you were outwitted by a bunch of artists and actors. The Ghost Army, the only unit in history where blowing things up meant inflating tanks rather than destroying them. Have you ever used or encountered a clever trick to mislead someone in a harmless way? Share your experiences in the comments. Rick Byers' book, The Ghost Army of World War II, provides an in-depth look at the creative and daring exploits of this unique unit, highlighting their crucial role in the Allied victory. From inflatable tanks to more ancient cunning, our next segment takes us to the Middle Ages, where unconventional tactics were a matter of survival. The Battle of Agincourt, archers and mud. The Battle of Agincourt in 1415 is a prime example of how terrain and unconventional tactics can turn the tide of war. King Henry V of England led his outnumbered forces against the French during the 100 Years' War. The English army, composed mainly of longbowmen, faced a much larger French force. Henry's strategic placement of his troops and the use of the muddy battlefield played crucial roles in his victory. The narrow field and recent rains turned the ground into a quagmire, hampering the heavily armored French knights. The English longbowmen, positioned behind sharpened stakes, unleashed volleys of arrows that devastated the French ranks. The muddy terrain further slowed the French advance, causing chaos and making them easy targets for the English archers. The result was a decisive English victory, despite the overwhelming odds. King Henry's leadership and understanding of the terrain allowed him to exploit the weaknesses of the French army effectively. The French knights, bogged down in the mud and unable to maneuver, became easy prey for the relentless English archers. After the battle, the English celebrated a hard-fought victory, and the longbow became an iconic symbol of English military prowess. The use of terrain and strategic placement of forces at Agincourt demonstrated the effectiveness of innovative tactics in overcoming numerical superiority. Imagine the frustration of the French knights, bogged down in the mud and pelted by arrows, unable to reach their foes. Henry V, proving that with enough mud and arrows you can turn even the fanciest knights into sitting ducks. Have you ever had to use your surroundings to gain an advantage in a situation? Share your stories below. Shakespeare's Henry V dramatizes the battle, while historians like Juliet Barker in Agincourt, The King, the Campaign, the Battle, provide detailed analyses of the tactics and conditions that led to the English victory. Next, let's explore an ingenious military strategy from India. The Battle of Hydaspes, Alexander's clever crossing. The Battle of Hydaspes in 326 BC showcases the brilliant tactics of Alexander the Great during his campaign in India. Facing King Porus of the Paurava kingdom, Alexander the Great needed to cross the formidable Hydaspes River. Porus had positioned his forces on the opposite bank, ready to repel any crossing attempt. Alexander devised a plan to mislead Porus by repeatedly feigning crossings at different points along the river, keeping Porus's forces on high alert and fatigued. One stormy night, under the cover of darkness, Alexander quietly moved a significant portion of his troops to a less defended part of the river. Using boats and rafts, his men crossed the turbulent waters. By the time Porus realized what was happening, Alexander's forces had already established a beachhead. This unexpected maneuver threw Porus's troops into disarray, allowing Alexander to launch a coordinated attack. The battle was fierce, with both sides demonstrating remarkable bravery and tactical skill. Alexander's use of cavalry to outflank Porus's war elephants and infantry ultimately led to his victory. Despite the formidable resistance, Alexander's strategic genius and adaptability won the day. Imagine the confusion of Porus's soldiers waking up to find Alexander's army already across the river. Porus was ready for a daytime showdown, but Alexander turned it into a nighttime splash fest. Surprise attacks are best served wet. Have you ever had to outsmart someone by thinking outside the box? Share your stories below. Historians like Arrian in The Campaigns of Alexander provide detailed accounts of the tactics and challenges faced during the Battle of Hydaspes. Our next segment shifts focus from ancient battles to a unique psychological tactic used by the Mongols during the Siege of Kaffa in 1346. Let's explore this early instance of biological warfare. Biological warfare by the Mongols during the Siege of Kaffa. The Mongols were not only known for their fierce combat skills, but also for their innovative and ruthless tactics. One of the earliest recorded instances of biological warfare took place during the siege of Kaffa in 1346. In 1346, the city of Kaffa, now Feodosia in Crimea, was a bustling Genoese trade hub. The Mongols, led by Janibeg, laid siege to the city. As the siege dragged on, the Mongol forces began to succumb to an outbreak of the bubonic plague. Instead of retreating, Janibeg decided to use the plague to his advantage. The Mongols catapulted the infected corpses over the city walls, intending to spread the deadly disease among the defenders. This grim tactic worked as the plague rapidly spread within Kaffa, leading to widespread death and chaos. The Genoese, desperate to escape the contagion, fled the city, inadvertently bringing the plague with them to Europe. This event is often cited as one of the means by which the Black Death was introduced to Europe, leading to one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. This use of biological warfare by the Mongols highlights the lengths to which commanders would go to achieve victory, even if it meant unleashing a catastrophic epidemic. It demonstrated the devastating potential of using disease as a weapon, a concept that has re-emerged in various forms throughout history. Imagine the defenders' horror as they saw plague-ridden bodies being hurled over their walls. Talk about going viral. The Mongols' plague delivery service really knew how to make an impact. Have you ever read about other instances of biological warfare in history? Share your knowledge and thoughts in the comments. Historians like Mark Wheelis in Biological Warfare at the 1346 Siege of Kaffa provide detailed accounts of this early instance of biological warfare. Additionally, Philip Ziegler's The Black Death discusses the broader implications of the plague's spread in Europe. From the devastating siege tactics of the Mongols, we turn to another ancient strategy that relied on psychological warfare to subdue enemies. Let's explore the terror tactics of Timur, the Pyramid of Skulls. Timur, also known as Tamerlane, was a 14th century conqueror who used terror as a psychological weapon to subdue his enemies. Timur was known for his brutal military campaigns across Central Asia and the Middle East. One of his most notorious tactics was the construction of pyramids made from the skulls of his defeated enemies. This gruesome practice served as a stark warning to those who might oppose him, instilling fear and discouraging resistance. Timur's use of terror was not limited to physical displays. He also spread stories of his cruelty to amplify his fearsome reputation. His army's relentless destruction and the psychological impact of his terror tactics enabled him to conquer vast territories with relatively minimal resistance. The sight of these pyramids of skulls was meant to break the spirit of the inhabitants and convince them of the futility of resistance. Imagine being a would-be rebel and coming across a massive pyramid of skulls. Timur took the phrase head count a bit too literally with his architectural masterpieces of terror. Have you ever encountered a situation where fear or intimidation played a role in the outcome? Share your thoughts below. Timur's tactics are well documented by historians such as John Joseph Saunders in The History of the Mongol Conquests, which details the psychological warfare employed by Timur during his campaigns. These incredible strategies show the power of ingenuity and creativity in warfare. Let's recap what we've learned today. Today, we explored some of the most unbelievable military tactics that actually worked throughout history. From Hannibal's daring Alpine crossing to the Russian scorched earth strategy, we saw how clever strategies can outmaneuver even the most formidable foes. We also delved into the psychological brilliance of the Ghost Army, the tactical genius of Alexander at the Battle of Hydaspes, the early use of biological warfare during the siege of Kaffa, and the terror tactics of Timur. These stories highlight the importance of thinking outside the box and using one's wits to overcome obstacles. Whether it's ancient battles or modern warfare, the power of clever tactics and psychological manipulation often plays a crucial role in determining the outcome of conflicts. These historical examples remind us that sometimes the most unconventional methods can lead to the greatest victories. If you enjoyed this dive into history's craziest war strategies, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more fascinating historical tales from History Lab archives. And don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts on these military tactics. Which one did you find the most surprising?